Starfleet Underground. Every week, we'll take a look at the latest Star Trek news and then check out a current or classic episode of Star Trek. Well, don't lose your head because this week there's a boy raised by Romulan Warrior Nuns. We learn about the famous Borg tradition of sock sliding. What about the desires to plant seeds or see cats? And why is Picard starting all that stuff? Also, is there something fishy about Doctor Jurarti?
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. The gang's all here. We had Heather, we have Rocky, Fred, myself, and our guest, Captain Patrick Hall, has joined us again. So if this is your first time, welcome. And if you're coming back, thanks for returning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Today's show, and I must say I'm extremely excited because, as Heather pointed out to me before, as well as Patrick, when we went to the premiere, we saw the first 3 episodes, which is like 30% of the whole season. So yesterday was the first time we saw a show that we never saw before. And oh my goodness, we're going to have to talk about that. I am just so excited about it.
Squeeze.
There's been a lot of things in there. A lot.
It's very good.
You know, very good.
Very, very good.
You know.
Were you just jumping out of your socks?
Oh, yes. It's like some things. And
that doesn't even include the last 15 seconds of it. Oh, boy.
Right?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, you know, there was a big thing on Twitter where Jeri Ryan was thanking fans for noticing her little head tilt.
Oh, yeah.
They were like 7 of 9s back, and she was just like, I can't believe you guys noticed that.
Yes. Oh, I was so excited.
Awesome.
She really wasn't on screen for more than, I said 15. It's probably less than that. She was not on screen that long. But those very few seconds, the entire of Twitter just kind of like, made a very big mess on the floor because it was such a big moment for everybody. It's so good to see her back.
Their basements were flooded.
And if you paid attention to the opening credits, you saw her name there, so you knew she was going to show up at some point.
Yeah, but the episode was just it brings you so much into the story. Even though she's in there, you kind of forget about it. And then she gets on and it's like,
Oh,
right?
Yes.
So good.
It was awesome. I tweeted out that I squealed like a bath toy, and she actually liked the tweet.
Yes. Awesome.
So
I was totally squilling too. I saw that.
It was like, whoa.
That was so cool. She liked that.
And it's nice that we finally got to meet Elnor, too.
I know.
Yes.
Cool.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, we need to talk about, but first we have to take care of housekeeping here. Corrections. Anybody has any corrections from the last podcast? Going once, going twice, gone. Now into the news section. Anybody's got any exciting things to share? From that laugh, I think you do.
oh boy.
So if you guys saw, Hollywood Reporter had a story out this week that was pretty cool about Jeri Ryan, and it had some new stuff in there. One of the things was when Jeri Ryan was doing the acting and when she was in there and flying the ship and all that stuff, she said she was so excited because she was able to use buttons that actually did something. And she exclaimed, "Oh my God, they actually work."
Yeah.
So I thought that was hilarious.
That sounds like a spoiler because I haven't seen her push a button yet.
Oh, spoiler. Spoiler.
That's one thing I love about the new modern Star Trek is they can build some kind of simulated interfaces for the actors to play with. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And they also said in the article, too, that believe it or not, her prosthetics actually take longer to put on than they did when she was doing Voyager.
What?
Really?
Why is that?
It's probably because of HD.
Right. 4K and all that.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't just fudge it as easily as you could back then. That's for sure.
Speaking of that, I was noticing that last night. The prosthetics now in HD, they are seamless. It's just perfection. Like, you go back and watch Voyager or TNG, and you can tell where the actor's ear is and where the prosthetic starts.
Well, just everything is up on the level of today's modern production standards. You look at the visual set extensions, and it is just the most amazing work these guys are doing for a TV show. Not just a movie, but for a TV show. And then you got little embellishments they put in there, like a little butterfly flying around. It just is almost completely seamless with the reality that they shoot.
Yeah.
It almost makes you wonder if you should watch some of these older reruns in a lower resolution.
Well, if you really want to go old school, we got the old 19-inch TV sitting out in the back. We can plug that stuff in.
Is it black and white?
But I mean, the point being, like, when you watch the let's say in the Next Generation on the TVs available at the time, everyone was really impressed with the special effects and the graphics.
Right.
And
no, some of the stuff they did the Next Gen was so good.
And now when you watch it on 4G, you're going to be able to see the little imperfections and start nitpicking.
It depends on how close you sit next to the screen, because I've got a very fancy TV over here in the quarters, but you sit a little further back, it still looks phenomenal, but you don't see every megapixel of noise that comes with the MPEG compression that they send out. So it's still, you can watch the Next Gen stuff because they did upconvert or reproduce it in HD, the Next Gen stuff, and it looks great.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, that's good.
But today's stuff is phenomenal.
Yeah, it is.
Same thing with the TOS. I talked to a person who worked on doing the upconversions for the original series from the film, and they told me how they had to go through and remove artifacts that you couldn't see on a regular TV. They had, there was an episode where Leonard Nimoy had spilled coffee on his tunic, and they got rid of the coffee stain for regular TV, but when they upconverted it, you could totally see the stain there.
That's amazing stuff.
And they had to go through and fix that.
Yeah, the original series stuff also pops off the screen too. The color quality, because you've seen color television from, if you were old enough to see color television as a broadcast, it looks a certain way. But you look at it on today's equipment, and if you have an actual real conversion from that era, the colors pop off the screen and they don't bleed. If you were watching regular good old tube TV, colors would bleed all over the place. It wouldn't look as clean. So it's a completely different experience watching original series with today's technology.
It does. It really points out when they were using gauze to make women glow.
Or they put the Vaseline on the cameras and stuff.
They were famous for doing that. They had the glow and everything.
They make those lighting choices where they just highlight certain things. It kind of jumps out at you a little bit.
They did, especially.
But that was part of the 60s, man. They were cool back then.
That's for certain. Anybody else have any news to share?
Well, it's kind of, I'm not really supposed to, but a friend of mine who works at CBS saw the first couple pages for a new Trek series.
Ooh. That's scandal right there.
Don't say anything. Really? Don't get them in trouble.
Does the number 3 and 1 have anything to do with it?
Nope. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, it's not even that.
Wait. So you don't have to tell us anything, but how much do you know?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I saw the first page.
That you read it?
Now, Heather, you have to be very careful asking him these questions because these guys are going to come back at a heartbeat's notice if you ask the wrong question.
Oh, wait, we have to stop the conversation right now. One of them just beamed in. He's staring at me now. I can't talk anymore.
Are you acting this time?
Let me ask this question. Can you at least tell us how soon this new series is going to go into production?
No, that I do not know. No, but it was like, what? Yeah, my jaw fell open.
Wow.
Well, you need to tell whoever this friend is, if anybody ever has a meeting, they ask, does anybody here know a Patrick, for him not to raise his hand?
Well,
that's like NDA violation.
Wait a minute. Who's Patrick Hall? I don't know who you're talking about.
Well, putting Patrick's information aside for a moment, I mean, there are stories out there that, there's a Section 31 series coming.
Right.
No, there's not. Section 31 is telling me right now that nope, nothing's happening. Lips are sealed.
I think you're getting disinformation.
Dude, the guy's creeping me out right here. Yep.
And of course, the fans are demanding a Captain Pike series. So
yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! I want a Captain Pike series.
That will be
That
good.
would be cool.
And then, of course, there's the animated series, too, that they're supposed to be working on at some point this year.
Well, there's two of them.
Yeah,
there's the Lower Decks and then the one for Nickelodeon.
Now, we know that there's a Pike. Well, we don't officially know that there's a Pike, but we know that there's a 31 and there's these animated series. Did that page happen to come off of one of those, or is it something we haven't heard about
yet? Well, I'm sorry. I can't hear you.
Censored by Section 31.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's what happens. Okay.
All right, we won't talk about that anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to get anyone else in any more trouble than they already are.
Although I like the way it ended. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Look, I can't control her. You have to leave my quarters. I understand that. But no, Heather is her own woman. So just beam on out of here, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. Section 31 showed up here, too. I thought we had those transport inhibitors. I don't know what happened.
We're in trouble, man.
Hey, let's continue on to the most exciting part here and move on to the recap of the show. Oh, my God.
Absolute candor.
Talk about...
Squeeze.
Oh...
I love this.
What did you guys think of the episode?
Where do we start with this episode?
Oh, yeah, it was great.
The visually, I feel like we stepped it up another notch visually. I mean, not just with the effects, but just with the cinematography of certain things. Mm-hmm. And the music is really hitting me on this show too, because there are musical moments in this episode that just had me like, I can't believe how good this is. The whole sequence where Soji is looking at the recordings of the Romulan, giving her all the information about the interviews and whatnot.
Ganmadan.
The shot where she's looking through the screen and the faces line up perfectly. That was completely constructed by a camera person and a director saying, let's do this right here. This is going to look cool. And boy, did that look cool. And then, the musical notes of, the destroyer, and the music goes, it's just so good. Loving all of that stuff. And of course, I like the scene where they went sock sliding. That also had the music jump up and just take over with that part of the show too. It was such a big moment for me.
Yeah, Borg traditions, man. Borg traditions.
And 7 of 9 was back.
I don't think we mentioned who the director was. This was
Jonathan
Frakes.
Yes.
First episode of the series.
I just keep noticing his name on the stuff that I like. When I see his name pop up, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a good one. Oh, this is going to be a good one. I can't wait for this. This is going to be great. And every single time, he has not had a dud. Every single one is really good.
No, he's really good.
I would like to see Roxanne Dawson direct one. See what she does with it.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
I agree.
That would be interesting.
Because she's a good director also.
Because she's done some really good stuff with DS9
and a lot of those former actors direct. Why not have a lot of them back?
Exactly.
That's the whole reason they learn to direct. I mean, because they're good at it and they understand the material. And only a Star Trek actor can direct with a certain capability that actors really can understand. There's just something about having an actor director.
Right, because when they're in the battle and they're in the ship and he's like, okay, now do the sway. And everybody's like, what are you talking about the sway? Do the shaking thing. Like only a person who's been in that situation could actually explain what to do and tell people what to do and direct them what to do because he's had experience doing it. Like just what Will Wheaton was saying in the Ready Room, there's only 100 people in this world that understand, do the shake or do the sway or whatever they call it.
Yeah. When, they have like a level to go with it, like bounce 3 or whatever, or bounce 7.
Okay, sway right, sway left.
That's the one disadvantage of the shorter seasons. There are definitely less opportunities for various directors to come back and do some episodes.
Well, but there's more shows. There's more shows. That's the thing. True. I see they're turning up the amount of shows we're going to get. So yeah, the number of episodes is not as many, but the quality level's way the heck up there. And they're bringing multiple shows at us from multiple dimensions. I mean, that's
true. And I'd rather complain. I'd rather have a movie style type of show and have 10 episodes versus 25 episodes. And hey, let's just throw this all together real fast and we don't really care.
I know there is a thing though about having the extended episode. It's really still kind of a new territory for us. The quote unquote Netflix show, the streaming show, because it is CBS All Access. Ixnay on the Netflix, but my pig Latin. But the pacing of the story and spreading it out, and getting you pieces of a time, it's a different tempo to get used to than it is when you'd have the quick 1 hour episode on TV. You know, you hit the commercial break and the music goes ta-da, and then you cut to black and you get a commercial from Affleck or something.
There is one thing. There is one thing from a production standpoint that I did notice from the first 4 episodes. Unlike Discovery, where the episode length seemed to kind of vary a little bit, you know, based on what material they wanted to cover. These first 4 have been all consistently around 45 minutes. So I don't know if they have like an eye at maybe
it's called international distribution,
future syndication. Maybe
it's international distribution. I bet you that's what it is, because it's one thing to be on a Netflix show, or I'm sorry, a streaming show. It's a whole nother thing to send it out overseas and put it on there, because they don't all have CBS All Access out there. They're not all streaming. There's broadcast formats you can conform to, and it's still worth some money, I would think. That's my guess. It's also nice to be, you know, here's the limit. You've got to hit the limit. I can see that as far as a production standpoint, something to aim to. The other side of this, guys, I was listening to one of the behind the scenes podcasts, and they were talking about how the actually first couple episodes, or first 3 episodes, was actually 2. And they went back and rearranged it to make 3, just to be able to fill the blanks in on the story for when they get to stuff later in the series. So that's something that's completely different and unique to the streaming show than it is to a TV series.
I like that they did that. I like that they filled in the details, and I wish they would do that more often.
And it's really an improvement, because it doesn't feel like these episodes are necessarily all that patched together. They're all solid episodes on their own, solid pieces of the story. So I'm all for it. I'm thinking this is really good. I understand, as an editor, would drive me up the friggin' wall to have to re-edit something that you worked really hard on and put it all together, and then be told, oh, we're going to take this part here and put this in here, and take this part here. We're going to have to put that in there and we're going to have to switch this around. It will drive you up the friggin' wall.
But that's part of being an editor. You do the video, and then they want like 4 or 5, 6 different revisions, and you're like, no, 3 revisions max.
Yeah. And then the end product, however, is just so good. You know, I can't complain. I'm not complaining. I am enjoying this so much.
And I'm loving the new transporter beams. Did anyone notice that?
Oh, the you can walk through the transporters now.
No. The transporter beam when Picard and Elnor beamed up from the planet. The special effect.
Oh, you just like the effect.
Yeah, it's
very clean. It's very clean and very crisp and very, you know, it's not overkill.
And did you see how much faster they dematerialized?
It's super fast now. Well, it's 20 years into the future. Just think of how much better technology is today than it was 20 years ago, and apply that to Star Trek technology. Yeah.
I mean, they were gone, man.
Yeah. They're walking through transporter beams. That was kind of a no-no. You weren't really supposed to be moving as you were beamed. So they're just doing it so casually now, and they're walking from place to place through the, you know, back on Earth through the quote-unquote metal detector looking transporter things. That, it's different, it's newer, and what I want to bring up attention to is the hologram stuff happening, especially in this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Did you guys notice Rios actually was also playing other characters in the last couple episodes?
He was 3 different characters.
I didn't notice it until this one. It hit me when I saw them come up. And he's like, it says on the Ready Room, his shades of Orphan Black. I mean, the guy played all those parts differently.
Yeah, he was cool. the hospitality hologram, and then he was the ship's
EMH.
And then the
I heard other podcasts mentioned that he was this character. I was like, oh, really? What? I missed that totally. And that's how good of an acting job he was, because I wasn't paying that close attention to it. Went right over my head. I'm like, oh, you're right. That is the same. Oh, that's amazing. And he's doing a different accent, and each one's its own individual character. Personality. That's really good acting.
And from the Ready Room, the actor, Santiago was saying that, he really liked that. It's fun as an actor to be able to, stretch and play multiple characters.
It is quite the challenge for an actor to do all that work. It is amazing stuff. The other side of things is I can relate as a person who has a certain set of skills that sometimes you're the only one that has those skills. It'd be nice to have a couple versions of me lying around. Can Rocky fix this? No, you can't be at 2 places at once. Well, with the magic of hologram technology, you kind of can be at 2 places at once or more. And I see this. As long as you don't
lose power, you're good.
Yeah, as long as you got power, you can do some amazing things. And that's what is really cool about this ship and this crew is they could do some amazing things. If he needs to be in 3 places at once, he can. That's super cool. And also the ship quarters being a holodeck, that's just brilliant. I mean, the creature comfort level being a crew person that you can have your own quarters be a hologram of whatever you want it to be. That's friggin' cool. And also, what a great way to save money on not having to build another set. From a production standpoint. That's like, oh, yeah, we'll just have this meeting here and this meeting here. We don't need to rebuild a whole nother thing. We just do it right here. Oh, that's awesome. That's a great idea. It's a hologram. Perfect.
All of the movie studios just need like one hologram studio and they're good. They have everything set for life.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is just on the whole aspect of what you can simulate in camera versus what you don't do in camera. There's a trend now. Of course, we're seeing the set extensions on this show, and some of it actually is a set and some of it is actually embellished backgrounds and computer generated. When you see other shows, the new trend thing they're doing now, they will put up actual visual screens on set and project imagery, ginormous screens, and put imagery on that. And it's tied with the camera movement physically. So they can physically move the camera back and forth, and the imagery in the background will track with the camera. So it looks like you're actually simulating a real place. And in camera, it looks like you're actually there. And that's something they can flip and change in a moment. So they don't have to build an entire set or go to an entire location to do something. They're doing that in The Mandalorian.
Well, sometimes they go to the location anyway and do it anyway.
That's true.
Game of Thrones, you know?
But it's amazing the tricks they're pulling off now. I mean, whether it's actual visual effects they're doing post-production or they're doing stuff in camera.
So do you think they actually had Rafi's mobile home at Vasquez Rocks?
I would think so. Yeah, that's probably just around the corner. They can pick that up pretty quick.
She probably lives in Las Vegas.
So Rocky, let me ask you this production question. Like when you have one actor playing two different characters in a scene, I assume they have to film it twice. How tricky is it to do the editing then to replace the stand-in with the character you want and to make it all seamless?
It's I would imagine it's not as easy as you think it might be. I'm just trying to imagine the logistics in knowing what shots you need when you're having a space battle going on and you're having, some of the parts of the background are generated CG, some of them aren't. And it's all about how much interaction and being able to do the timing. They have to be very careful when they shoot this stuff to not overlap the wrong thing. However, they can shoot it multiple takes, multiple times. And if need be, they could probably go back and reshoot something pretty quick if they needed to. So, you do have to think about it really, really closely. I do not work in that level of production work, so I actually don't know how tricky it is. But you can imagine if you plan correctly, they would do split screens back in the day. You can do a split screen and have interaction that way. But the second you start overlapping things and they're throwing in visual effects and explosions and the ship's moving back and forth, there's a lot to juggle. So they have to be very careful what they do. But they pulled it off with, with flying colors in this episode for sure.
They just need to talk to the people who did Orphan Black to figure out how to do it. I mean, because Orphan Black did it amazingly well.
Yeah. I mean, if you think back to the original series, there was the one episode where, Kirk was split into two because of the transporter accident.
Oh, yeah.
But the scenes where you saw the two Kirks were a lot simpler by comparison. I mean, the ship wasn't, being shaken and, by attacks and what have you. So it was basically just more of a static scene where
it's not impossible to do. It's just, the more tricks you add on top of it, you have layers and layers of effects and little switcheroos you're doing. As long as it looks good on screen, go for it. But you have to really plan carefully.
So getting back to the episode, what did you guys think about seeing Planet Vashti and the kid for the first time?
Well, before we got to the planet, Doctor Jurarti had a really, profound, although kind of funny statement, too, where she commented about how space is so vast and empty. And while it sounded funny, it kind of gave a little perspective too. Like usually in Star Trek, we go from point A to point B and we don't think about how big space is, but
you don't see the long periods of time when they're at warp. They just warp from one place to the next and we're there. And you kind of got a feel for Star Trek Voyager being lost in the Delta Quadrant trying to get back, warping, we'd be kind of close back in about 80 something years or so. Yeah, you don't get that feel of going from point A to point B and sitting around twiddling your thumbs the whole time. So it's kind of neat to see that.
Basically, it was like taking a road trip for like a few years and only having a Klingon opera to listen to.
Yeah. Why only Klingon opera? I would imagine it's because it's the best thing they could get besides packing all of those other holograms into the computer database.
Well, you know what
Maybe
they
it was
say.
a 2-for-1 special.
You know what they say. It's not over until a Klingon sings opera.
Yeah, it wasn't clear how long that trip was, but obviously Jurarti had plenty of time to do a lot of reading, and
you can talk about the existential pain of living with the consequences of death as casual conversation. What are they doing with that stuff? Dropping that on us like that? It's like, dude, don't make my head explode. I'm trying to watch Star Trek.
What? You guys never sit around thinking about the existential, like, I can't even say the whole phrase.
Yeah, I literally hit pause and wrote it down really quick because it was like, whoa, that was a big one. The first time it went by me, I had to watch it a second time and go, existential plane of living with okay, what?
The best line, though, was the man can't even take a guilt trip without a spaceship.
That was a good line.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That was
good.
Perfection, man.
Now, the way you noticed that it must have been really difficult because for him as a little boy, he had really looked up to Picard, and the disappointment.
We're talking about Elnor now, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Elnor, and the disappointment he might have felt.
Elnor, not Eleanor. Eleanor's a girl.
Elnor. I haven't had my coffee yet. Elnor. So it was, and I think they did a great casting because the little boy did look a lot similar to him as an adult.
But he had blue eyes.
Yeah, can we talk about his fighting skills?
Wow.
Yeah.
I just want to say Romulan Warrior Nuns. Romulan Warrior Nuns.
Warrior Nuns.
Oh, boy. And absolute candor is one hell of a concept. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to mess with them. That's for sure.
Well, one, they're really, really moody. They're really emo, but they also are really good with the blades, so don't piss them off.
Yeah.
Just got to watch out around those guys. Or girls, because they're all girls, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you notice that the thing they said, though, they only take a pause if it doesn't seem like it's going to be unwinnable, that it's going to result in defeat. And it goes, yeah, that's hopeless, so we'll help you. That's a real interesting concept, to think about. They only take on what they feel is unwinnable.
Yeah.
So
that
was pretty wild.
Yeah, the only cause we feel like taking care of is the lost cause. Talk about going all out for it. I dig it. I think it's cool.
It was interesting too at the end when Picard was explaining to Jurarti, what the criteria was for one of those warrior nuns to accept the mission, and it's like Jurarti's like, oh.
Yeah. And did you guys notice when Rafi was saying to Picard, we can only focus on like one impossible thing at a time?
I felt that before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me figure out this one thing first, then we can take care of that.
And speaking of impossible, Fred, seriously, dude, you need to get control of your tribbles. Hairball won't stop humping my leg, and Squirrely keeps begging me for food.
Well, for a nominal fee, there is a sklommer available.
Oh, God, okay, come over, I'll pay you. Give it to me.
Now, speaking of glommers,
I predict there's a good market for the glommers, huh?
and breadcrumbs. One of the things I've noticed is that when I decided to go back and watch the show from the start to finish, and this time disengaging my brain, so because at first I'm just squealing everywhere. Did you guys notice that the opening sequence, it looks like there's a biological being made? I mean, you look like an iris is being done, and then you have all these pieces. It almost lends to the thing that Picard is being rebuilt.
The opening sequence, right?
With the opening sequence.
Okay.
And another thing that I've noticed, and I wanted you guys to pick this up, is that when Picard goes to meet, help me here, Pat, what's the girl's name with the blonde hair?
Rafi?
Ralph? No, she doesn't have blonde hair.
No, the scientist.
The
sure.
doctor.
The scientist.
Oh,
The doctor.
Jurarti. Agnes Jurarti. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, you notice with Jurarti, when Patrick went to go talk to her, and she brought up the fact that Daj blew up. Stewart never told her that. Picard never told her she blew up. How did she know?
Okay, now I'm going to have to go back and watch that.
Oh,
try
know,
to-
right?
I'm going to have to go back and look at that too. Yeah,
So
I didn't
is it
notice
possible that she's an android? Because, the Daystrom Institute was supposed to be shut down and she's the only one.
Well, the other thing the thing that caught me is the second they brought her on board, Rafi got like, she didn't do a security scan on her. I mean, you're just trusting her.
And then also at the Picard Chateau, she just happens to show up.
At the last second with a phaser that might be set to stun, but they don't
That's
have
a
stun
good
settings.
point.
Yeah, I'm
So
just
there's-
like, yeah.
Yeah, so there's one thing that I kind of noticed.
I'm
And another
suspicious
thing
of her too. Yeah, I agree.
I picked up, and I saw on Twitter that other people had picked up, is that first off, the Commodore O is wearing sunglasses all the time. It puts me back to Discovery, where in Discovery, Lorca had that stuff for his eyes because he came from the mirror universe and he couldn't see bright light.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And-
interesting.
Mind
That's
blown.
interesting. The
Always
visual
wearing
thing. Yeah.
sunglasses.
Yeah.
That was the sound of my mind just going, pow.
Right?
So
that-
it's making me wonder if
Are we tying
have
in
a
the
lot
alternate
of
universe?
Yeah, they got little
That's-
breadcrumbs throughout the whole thing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Now, as far
Cray,
as the
cray.
scene at the chateau, I thought that the reason she had a weapon was, a number of the Romulans had been, shot before she came in onto the scene. So I thought maybe she had just picked up one of their weapons.
But
Exactly,
it didn't happen
yeah.
on screen, so you don't know for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
True, you
there is
don't.
questionable things happening here.
True. That was more of an assumption, but
Yeah.
that may or may not be correct. But I'll have to go back and rewatch the early scene where Jurarti and Picard meet for the first time. I mean, that's an interesting observation.
Yeah, that's a really good observation.
Another piece of internet chatter that I saw was there were some people questioning whether Jurarti might be under some sort of control by Commander O. Whether I don't know if the Romulans are capable of doing any like mind melds or.
Well, either way, she's like a spy or an implant. We just don't know for who.
Yeah, and she may not even know. She might be planted in a
She's not
location. She's just
activated
following
if she
orders.
is.
That's totally possible.
Yeah.
I just
she-
found that very interesting.
She would be just like Soji, not activated yet, if in fact she is a droid.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
So speaking of Soji, that one part where we were talking about with the face and we started getting into the technical details, I wanted to talk about the Ganmadan, I think is how you say it, Day of Annihilation.
It's probably on a Friday, right?
Right, but it's like Apocalypse Now. It's like the movie, right? Apocalypse Now.
It'll happen on a Friday the 13th under a full moon.
So Soji is basically going to be the cause or the catalyst of the apocalypse, and that's why she's called the Destroyer.
It'll be on Red Shirt Day.
Right.
Oh shit! Red Shirt Day. Oh,
Yeah, no, she's it's a lot of oh my god, a lot of pressure to be the destroyer of all. I mean,
right. That must be one giant screw up if you're the like cause of the galactic apocalypse.
and the close up of her reacting to this or not reacting, that there's just like an extra second of shot of her close up while this is being said. It's like, oh, is she going to put 1 and 2 together, or does she already know? I mean, I'm wondering what's going on inside that positronic brain of hers.
I don't think she knows yet. I think she's still in the dark about who and what she is. I mean, she's obviously getting a little bit, glimpses here and there of like information popping into her head that she didn't previously know, but I don't quite get that she knows who she is.
And she's figuring out that Nerek's Tal Shiar, and when he's lying to her, the reaction when she didn't like being called a liar. So the only way to save that is to go sock sliding again, right?
oh my god, sock sliding.
Yeah, he tried to throw her off track.
Borg traditions, man.
Yeah.
Borg, quote unquote Borg tradition.
Well, Nathan, he didn't try to throw her off track. He tried to throw her on the ventilation track in, sliding motion.
That's for sure.
You got to get that
She
sliding
was like-
motion in there, man.
The sliding motion. Well, he also talked about planting seeds.
Oh my god, yeah.
Wow.
That's not a metaphor.
And
That whole thing with the brother or sister, the whole family's creepy.
Yeah.
It's not just him. It's the whole family that's
yeah,
creepy.
and his sister said that he studied basically what he's getting into with Soji. Where are we studying? Are we studying androids or are we studying seducing? I don't know.
I think she meant androids.
But it's creepy.
Yeah.
It's definitely creepy. But he's worked all his life to get up to this point. And boy, what a moment, right?
So he had sex with a lot of people?
Or a lot of androids. I don't understand.
Oh, androids. That's it.
Or it could be both. It could be both. I don't understand what's going on. And he is very confident that he is not going to, quote unquote, activate her and be, obliterated quickly.
Yeah, all boyfriends think that.
That brings up a question. I mean, what actually activates the androids? Like with Daj, it seemed like being put in a kind of like a life or death situation. So I don't know if it's like a sudden trauma that just activates the program and then...
Yeah, is it like a lightning reflex?
No, I'm sorry to say this. So once a month, there's a time in a woman's life.
It's the once a month thing?
Yes.
That's not it.
That is not it. That's a different kind of activation. We're not talking about that kind of activation. I mean, yes, she may want to choke you to death, but she's not going to do 7 guys choking to death at once.
Heather, you just sit down with that, Heather. Sit down with
that. So you're saying if the guys would have visited Daj the next day, they would have been okay, huh?
If we waited a week, she would have been just, candles and fluffy happiness and milkshakes.
Well, and to your point, Heather, I mean, men have cycles too. They just don't bleed every month. So they have the same thing. So
good point.
Everybody's got a biological rhythm that they like to get into.
Yeah.
We all have our ups and downs.
Ups and downs. Yes. Ins and outs.
Wait, belly buttons?
One thing that I really noticed in this episode was, so we all know that Picard is this respected, person who's revered and who pretty much, he gets his way most of the time. But in this episode, you really see him being swatted down like a little child. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's gone through. I mean, we've all grown up watching Picard, saving the day all the time and triumphantly succeeding and doing what he sets out to do. We've never seen him really fail that hard. He's had the hardest fails of his life, one after another right there.
I don't know. I think it's just
together.
more like Star Trek is finally showing reality because, Next Generation, I love it, but it's not reality. Things don't always go right. He doesn't always save the day. Shit hits the fan. It's reality, Oh my God, you come to the planet and it's like, don't you know who I am? Yeah, we do. Goodbye. See ya, Felicia.
But he's taking on the guilt of what isn't necessarily all his responsibility. I mean, it was the Federation who pulled out of, saving the Romulans, but he's taking on the guilt of that all to himself.
He's had a lot of that. He's had to go back and apologize and say, hey, that happened, but here I am.
Apologies aren't really helpful when you walk into the Romulan barn, stop on their sign, and cause a fight.
Well, that's just getting their attention.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude, that's bipolar.
But yeah, that was, how do you apologize for that?
Well, one thing I did notice too is it wasn't just that Starfleet gave up on the rescue effort. I think one thing that Picard is getting criticized for is kind of like going after the perfect and not being willing to settle for the good. Because that comment came up where.
That was a good line.
I wrote that down. Perfect became the enemy of the good.
Yeah, exactly. And, you heard that from the Romulan nuns. Rafi was kind of expressing the same opinion, more or less. So it's kind of bringing up the question of, okay, granted, Starfleet Command and the Federation weren't willing to go along with the rescue effort, but if Picard would have stayed in Starfleet, could he have done some good? Granted, he wouldn't have been able to save as many people as he could have with Starfleet backing him, but could he have done some good? And that's an interesting question.
It's very interesting because as Picard, the admiral of the, he's a ginormous figurehead in representing Starfleet in all that he does. And when stuff goes wrong and you're representing Starfleet, even though it's not your fault, people are going to hold you to it. And we don't normally see that And we're seeing it now. This world is, I mean, people are complaining about, oh God, Star Trek's going to go crazy. They're going to get super political and super depressing and super dark. And well, I don't think it's going to that extent that everybody's in fear of. We are seeing a slightly different Star Trek than we're used to. We're seeing, quote unquote, reality, or what happens when stuff doesn't work out the way it's supposed to. Yeah, it's a very interesting side that we're seeing here. You know, life isn't perfect. And it's kind of, you know, sometimes you just got to deal with and go on with imperfection.
Very, very,
You've got to do the best you can. And I think we're going to see the best you can, and it's going to be pretty darn good. It's just going to take a bit to get there.
One of the things that I think might have happened is that Picard has become a victim of his own success. You have a legendary Starfleet captain that everyone knows that he makes the impossible happen. And so they put credit and stock into that. And so when it didn't, they unfairly blame him for not going on. I think they're taking an immature look at it. They should go, well, you know, it wasn't his fault. It was really out of his hands. It was Starfleet that did this, not Picard, but they all blame him. So I think, like, it is the great Picard. He can do the impossible, and he failed us. So this is all his fault.
Well, he was also the face of the Starfleet Federation. I mean, he was their, you know, contact point. So when he abandoned them, and they had no contact point, and then all of a sudden they were sort of SOL, I would understand being upset with him too.
Yeah, I would be pissed off if I was one of those Romulans. I would be very upset at this guy. But what was the Romulans at the bar? What was their intention? Were they going to just friggin' beat up on him, or were they going to really kill him? I was wondering about that.
The senator is the one that notified authorities that Picard was there.
Yeah, he had some kind of he's this guy's here, watch out.
Communications device. Yeah,
he just lost his head though. I mean, he just went overboard.
You can't lose your head in anger. It's not a good thing.
No, never.
It never ends well, especially when you're nearby somebody who was raised by Romulan Warrior Nuns.
Exactly.
You know that
sharp blade.
That scene kind of reminded me a little bit of like a Highlander scene, you know, where you'd have the blades, and they have to kill someone to gain their power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or just you lose that argument with somebody, and they just, and next thing you know, your head just gone.
It was like a little Princess Bride moment. Hello, my name is. You touch Picard, prepared to die.
Yes. I really, he could have given him a second warning. It was a very clear and present warning, but it wasn't like, seriously, dude, I'm going to fucking off you if you mess with him. She's just, no, you didn't get none of that. I guess it's just his mere presence of being there. I mean, I understand if you're familiar with the person, but did he really know he was in mortal danger by challenging Picard like that?
Yeah, but Picard shouldn't have been starting shit to begin with. I
True.
mean, Picard, I think that thing in his head started going off or something because he was aggressive.
Picard, he sees a lot of stuff, and there's just a moment where I'm not going to take and settle for this shit anymore. I got to do something. I think that's the way Picard was thinking, because he had 7 minutes for the window to beam him back up on the ship. So, I got 7 minutes. Let's see what I'm going to do here.
I'm being really nice when I say aggressive. He acted like a dick.
Yeah, he was. He's like, I'm going to start some shit.
Well, the other thing too is he was alone at the moment. It wasn't like he had
what the frick
Worf.
Was he thinking?
Yeah, he didn't have Worf standing behind him,
so
ready to defend it.
He needs Worf to keep him back. Hold me back, bro. Hold me back.
Well, no. He needs Worf to deal with anyone that comes after him.
You know what it is? It's sheer fucking hubris. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Something's up with Picard. He's doing these little random, what the F are you doing, man? He's doing those things.
He probably wasn't a slow burn, because you ever go on work or something, you go by multiple people and you say good morning, good morning, good morning, and everyone just kind of stares at you. So after a while you get pissed, well, good morning. Oh, you're not going to answer me? Well, fuck you.
So he basically went postal.
Yeah, he was where he was ready to deliver the mail for the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah, so long true, so long true, so long true, so long true. God damn, answer me, so long true.
It's the Romulan ale.
It gives you wings.
Maybe he needed some Romulan ale. That's probably what it was. He was too sober.
But you notice also those nuns apparently have a good rep, as well as the boy did, because they're all aware how well he fight. But that guy at the last second was like, well, I know you're good with this sword, but can you stand against a disruptor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was challenging,
though.
It was something. I mean, you know, if you're going to take a lost cause, how would you know? That was a pretty lost cause. You wouldn't be expecting that guy to, you know, side with Picard like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting what if question. If Picard would have stayed within Starfleet, even though the Federation was giving up on the Romulan evacuation, do you think Picard could maybe have done something for the people that had been evacuated already? Like, you know, maybe kept the Federation in contact with Vashti and, you know, helping them resettle and.
Oh, I totally think it's possible that Picard would, but he probably ended up on that vineyard and started drinking his own product and didn't need to feel the need to go out and take charge of stuff.
He could have done it either way, whether he was in Starfleet or not, but he, like they alluded to it, he kind of gave up, you know, he just.
Yeah.
Well, when the world turns against you, sometimes you just don't feel like fighting anymore. Is that what it is?
It's hard to believe, though, that Picard would... There's got to be something more to it, because Picard's not one to back down. So for him to have given up and just, you know... there's something weird about it, to me, anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't resonate with the Picard we all know and love. That's true.
So
like you said, maybe there's something more that we just haven't learned yet.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think might have happened in his past that would cause him to do that, knowing the Picard that we know?
Maybe the loss of data.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You take away Starfleet, or Starfleet takes away itself and then starts doing, you know, acting opposite of what you believe in, what you've always believed in, and does it again and again and throws up walls in your face and stops you from doing what you think needs to be done. And then, you know, you lose people. I mean, you've lost people. It's got to be tough for Picard. You know, the same way he got blasted on the Federation News Network, that probably wasn't the only time that happened either. It was probably something that happened a lot when the Mars attack happened the 14 years prior. You know, you're middle in trying to save planets full of Romulans and they pull the rug out from underneath you. That's hurtful. You can't, you see how hurtful it was, and he knows how hurtful it was.
Well, especially when you hold the Federation in such high regard, and that the standards of the Federation are, you know, the values that they engender are what you've lived your life by, and then they turn their back on them. You know, that, I mean, it just had to be this huge slap in the face for Picard.
Yeah, massive slap in the face. And it's not just the Federation as a whole, it's the individuals in the Federation in power that he would work with, the admirals and, you know, all the other uppity-ups that he would work with. And they just all betrayed him, basically.
So I think what might have happened with Picard is that he was a victim of his own success. I mean, everyone looked up at him as representing Starfleet totally. And when Starfleet failed, they believed that Picard failed. And it's kind of unfortunate in a way, because he made them a promise. And if you remember what she said in the house when he went to go pick up Elnor, is that when you promise someone, you become the jailer. So it's possible they looked at him as being their jailer.
I love that line. That promises
are prisons.
Yes, promises are prisons. Don't be their jailer. I love that line. That is so profound.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was a really good comment. A lot of times promises are made casually, and that line kind of reminds you to think before you make promises.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one of the things which I grew up thinking, coming from a dad who was in the Marines and myself, and Pat knows this as well. I really go out of my way not to make a promise unless I'm going to do everything that I can do to keep it. Even my mom knew that. She knew that if she really wanted me to do something, she had to get me to say the words, I promise, or else I wasn't going to commit 100%.
But you promised to do WonderCut with me, and instead you're going off with your girlfriend on a freaking cruise.
It's a family cruise. It's a family cruise.
You broke your promise to me.
I never promised it. I never promised you. Plus, you don't bring me flowers anyway.
Well, you never promised me a rose garden, so I'm not picking flowers.
Just make sure it's not a 3-hour cruise, Nathan.
Right?
No, actually, we got several family members that we're going to go down to the Caribbean. So it's my first time heading down that way. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, have fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, have fun.
It's possible. I don't like being on any. I don't like being on anything that if the engine breaks, I can't walk home. So.
Well, not just that, but the whole thing going on with Princess right now. I mean, just stay
Coronavirus.
safe, be careful.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of being quarantined on a ship.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, when that happens, I'll give you advance notice, Fred, because you're going to sit in the captain's chair while I'm away.
Ooh.
Now,
And if you guys need someone to fill in while he's gone, just let me know, and I'll be happy to help out.
cool.
Okay, I'm going to start wrapping up here because I don't know when my comms is going to go out. If you guys are listening to the podcast here that I was spotting in and out of here, I think it has something to do with me putting transport inhibitors in the cabin. I'm going to have to get with you, Fred and Rocky, and find out why.
Slight interference. I think if you put them like 16 inches apart versus 18, maybe something like that.
Do we have any other podcasts to give love to? Any other correspondence? Heather, you get ready to say something?
No podcast, but I just do want to talk about one more thing before we go. Remember the part in the episode where they were talking about, binding his sword to the cause and, is there a ritual? Do I go down on my knees? God, I hope not. I'm like, dude, he's not a priest. I mean, yeah, nuns and all, but it's not a priest. You don't have to, blow him. It's okay. It's all good.
Is that something about promising? I might be doing something wrong here.
That gives a whole new dimension to promise ring.
Yikes.
You mean cock ring?
And then he's like, my knees, they're not what they used to be. I'm like, really? How many have you done? Okay. Right?
And then, if you get a certain age, your knees start to wear out. Doesn't matter how old you actually are.
Especially if you use them a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been a lot of binding to other people's causes. And then Elnor, he also said that he never saw a cat. And Picard's like, if you come with us, you might run across one or two. And I'm like, he's talking about pussy. Cool.
In a house full of Romulan Warrior Nuns.
Right.
You think at some point you'd see something.
So I just had to talk about that. I just had to get that out of my, off my chest and
Another
all that.
metaphor. Okay.
I have a sick mind. I'm sorry.
And spam.
I thought he just liked cat videos.
Yes, spam too. They still have spam.
Spam.
Remember? The ready room.
Yes, that preview. Yes. And it was a personalized spam too.
Yeah, I like the part where Elnor at the end was like, I didn't get one.
I like that.
Oh, yeah, that was hilarious.
Actually, what would have been perfect for Elnor would have been a spam message. There's this exciting sale on swords. Buy it now.
Well, remember, they don't call it spam anymore. It's targeted advertising. He just didn't have a database. That's why they didn't target him.
They couldn't target him because they didn't know who he was.
Exactly.
True.
And she made a big show of being nonviolent, but yet she knocked that robot's head off, the Holo robot.
And if it's targeted advertising, what was she looking at that would make them think she would like that?
Ooh.
Well, I want to see her Google history.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, this has been a very informative and interesting show. Excitement is riding high, and I'm sure as everyone else is. Please, if you like us, give us a like, a follow, spread the word. Remember, you can find us in Starfleet Underground almost on every platform that's out there now. You can get us on SoundCloud, iTunes. You can get us on YouTube. So we're out there. And I'm sorry, my mind is a little broken. The Section 31 beamed in here again. Dude, I told you I talked to her. Okay, so please, just you're in my light. I can't see the screen with you standing that close to me. Personal space. All right. And thanks everyone again for listening. Send us emails. Like I said, we do read our comments, and who knows, maybe we'll pick one of you guys to be a guest. So I'm going to, instead of saying just goodbye right off the bat, I'm going to have the crew all yell and say goodbye.
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 So
Live
long.
long and
Farewell.
prosper. So long,
Auf Wiedersehen.
farewell.
Goodbye.
Now remember,
And-
just don't. Oh, go ahead, Fred.
And make it so.
Yes, just don't have a good week. Make it so. This is Starfleet Underground bidding you until next week. Bye.
Starfleet Underground, beaming into a podcast feed near you. Log on to our website at starfleetunderground.com and send your comments and questions to thecollective@starfleetunderground.com. Follow us on Twitter at StarfleetUnderG and on Facebook and Instagram, we're Starfleet Underground.